Your wife gave 5 stars to the chef's magical hands that made her tremble with delight all night long. My colleague Miguel's voice was carefully neutral as he translated my wife's Spanish restaurant review, but his eyes revealed uncomfortable awareness that we weren't discussing culinary skills. The office around us continued its normal Monday morning rhythm, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, casual conversation flowing, while my world imploded in 6 quiet sentences. She praised the intimate atmosphere where hours passed like minutes, Miguel continued, avoiding my gaze, and mentioned returning whenever her husband travels for work again. My hands went numb. The coffee mug I'd been holding slipped through suddenly lifeless fingers, shattering against the floor. Dark liquid splashed across my shoes, but I couldn't move. For 6 months, I'd been secretly learning Spanish to surprise Anna on our upcoming anniversary trip to Barcelona. 6 months of early morning language apps, lunchtime lessons with Miguel, and audio courses during my commute. 6 months of keeping my progress hidden so the surprise would be perfect. Instead, I'd discovered my wife's review of her date with another man, posted publicly on her food blog, thinking I couldn't understand the language she'd grown up speaking. The review wasn't about the paella. The morning had started normally enough. I arrived at the office early as usual, coffee in hand, mentally reviewing project deadlines for the week. Miguel, a colleague who'd been helping with my Spanish lessons, stopped by my desk with his typical Monday greeting. ¿Cómo estuvo tu fin de semana? He asked. How was your weekend? Tranquilo, I replied, pleased with my improving pronunciation. Ana estuvo en Chicago por trabajo. Quiet. Ana was in Chicago for work. Miguel nodded, then hesitated, an odd expression crossing his face. I saw Anna's new blog post. The restaurant review? Very enthusiastic. My wife ran a moderately successful food blog, posting reviews of restaurants in our city and places she visited during business trips. She wrote most entries in English, but occasionally posted in Spanish, particularly when reviewing Latin American cuisine. She'd grown up bilingual, her mother was from Mexico, while I'd struggled through basic Spanish classes in high school, retaining almost nothing. I haven't seen it yet, I admitted. She must have posted it last night after getting home. Was it about that new Argentinian place in Chicago? Miguel's discomfort visibly increased. David, it was about Alma, that new Spanish restaurant here in town. From Saturday night. Confusion replaced casual interest. That can't be right. Anna was in Chicago all weekend, left Friday morning, got back late last night. The silence that followed contained its own terrible message. Miguel pulled out his phone, navigated to Anna's blog, and hesitantly handed it to me. The latest entry featured a photo of Paella from Alma, a restaurant less than 20 minutes from our house, timestamp 10:23 p.m. Saturday night. Maybe she came back early and wanted to surprise you, Miguel suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. I scrolled through the Spanish text, recognizing food terms but unable to comprehend the full review. Can you translate? My Spanish isn't good enough yet. What followed was the most painful translation of my life, Miguel reluctantly converting flowery Spanish prose into stark English revelations. The review was ostensibly about the restaurant, but the subtext was unmistakable. References to intimate lighting perfect for getting lost in someone's eyes, and a night of unforgettable passion made it clear Anna hadn't dined alone. Most damning was the closing line, which Miguel translated with visible discomfort. Alma provides the perfect escape from everyday life. I'll be returning whenever my husband travels for work again. The implications crashed over me in devastating waves. Anna hadn't been in Chicago. She'd been 20 minutes from our home, dining with someone while I believed she was in another state. This wasn't a one-time impulse, but something planned to coincide with my supposed absence, and she intended to repeat the experience during future business trips. My business trips, not hers. I'm sorry, man, Miguel said quietly. Maybe it's not what it sounds like? But we both knew better. The review's sensual language and explicit reference to my travel schedule left little room for innocent interpretation. I need to go, I managed, gathering my things with mechanical movements. Can you tell Peterson I had to leave? Family emergency. Miguel nodded, concern evident in his expression. Call if you need anything. The drive home passed in a blur of alternating numbness and nauseating clarity. Memories reorganized themselves around this new information. Anna's increased business travel over the past year, her renewed interest in maintaining her appearance, her occasional distraction during conversations, her phone always positioned face down. Signs I'd attributed to normal life fluctuations or simple coincidence now aligned into an unmistakable pattern. Our house looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Coffee cup in the sink, mail stacked on the counter, Anna's keys in the bowl by the door. The ordinary domesticity felt like a stage set, familiar objects arranged to create the illusion of shared life while concealing a different reality. Anna would be at her office by now, managing the marketing team for a regional healthcare provider. Should I call her? Confront her immediately? Wait until she came home? The uncertainty paralyzed me briefly before pragmatism took over. Before confrontation, I needed verification. Confirmation that what I suspected was actually happening. I began with her laptop, still on the desk in our home office. We knew each other's passwords, had never felt the need for digital privacy from each other, or so I'd thought. Her computer unlocked with the same password we'd used for years, revealing browser history that had been meticulously cleared. Too meticulously, perhaps. The very absence of normal browsing history suggested deliberate concealment. Her phone would contain more information, but I wouldn't have access until she returned home. Instead, I checked our shared calendar, noting the Chicago conference she'd supposedly attended over the weekend. The event existed in her schedule, but a quick internet search revealed no marketing conference in Chicago during those dates. Our credit card app showed no Chicago hotel charges, no airline tickets. Instead, there was a significant charge from Alma Restaurant Saturday night, $247 for what must have been an elaborate meal for two. Another charge from a local wine bar Friday evening, a rideshare service at 1:14 a.m. Sunday morning, going from an address I didn't recognize to our home. Each discovery tightened the knot in my stomach. This wasn't impulsive behavior, but calculated deception, fake business trips, cleared browser histories, elaborate cover stories, and apparently ongoing, based on her blog's closing line about returning whenever my husband travels for work again. The final confirmation came from an unexpected source. Checking our security system app, I reviewed door sensor logs from the weekend. Our front door had opened at 11:47 p.m. on Friday, hours after Anna had supposedly flown to Chicago, and again at 1:23 a.m. Sunday morning, matching the rideshare timestamp. The evidence was irrefutable. While I'd been learning Spanish to surprise her, Anna had been conducting an affair, documenting it in a language she thought I couldn't understand, and planning to continue whenever my work took me out of town. I sat at our kitchen table, surrounded by digital evidence on various devices, trying to process the collapse of trust that had occurred in less than 2 hours. Outside, spring sunshine illuminated our backyard, the garden we'd planted together, the patio where we'd hosted summer dinners with friends, the hammock where we'd spent lazy Sunday afternoons reading side by side. The peaceful scene contrasted cruelly with my internal devastation. My phone buzzed with a text from Anna. "Working late tonight, don't wait up for dinner. Love you." Another lie, casually delivered. Another planning opportunity for whatever came next. I stared at the message, the 3-word endearment at the end now seeming like the cruelest deception of all. Anna and I met 8 years ago at a friend's housewarming party. One of those gatherings where you know the host but few other guests. I noticed her immediately, not just for her obvious beauty, but for the animation in her expression, as she described a recent trip to Mexico City. When the conversation shifted to language, she mentioned growing up bilingual with an American father and Mexican mother. "I've always envied people who grow up with multiple languages," I said. "I took Spanish for 4 years and can barely order a beer." She laughed, switching seamlessly into Spanish, then back to English when she saw my blank expression. "It's never too late to learn," she'd said. "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now." That mix of warmth, intelligence, and gentle teasing drew me to her immediately. We exchanged numbers that night, had our first date 3 days later, and quickly developed the kind of relationship that felt both exciting and comfortable. Passionate without drama, supportive without codependence. Anna's career in healthcare marketing complemented my work in project management for a construction firm. We shared enough common interests, hiking, international films, trying new restaurants, to enjoy time together, while maintaining enough separate pursuits to avoid suffocation. Her extroverted nature balanced my more introverted tendencies. My planning complemented her spontaneity. We married after 2 years of dating, a vineyard ceremony with family and close friends. The early years of marriage brought the usual adjustments, but nothing that threatened our fundamental connection. We navigated career changes, a cross-country move for Anna's promotion, the deaths of my father and her grandmother. Through each challenge, our partnership provided stability and comfort. The first significant strain emerged 3 years ago when discussion about starting a family revealed unexpected differences. Anna, initially enthusiastic about having children, began expressing reservations about the impact on her career trajectory and our lifestyle. I'd always envisioned becoming a father, but found myself increasingly uncertain as Anna's hesitation grew. We entered couples therapy to address the impasse, eventually reaching bittersweet resolution. We would remain childless by choice, a decision that brought clarity, but required genuine grief processing for the family version of ourselves we'd never become. The experience tested our communication skills and emotional resilience, but ultimately seemed to strengthen our commitment to the marriage we were actually building, rather than the one we'd initially imagined. With the family question settled, we redirected energy toward career advancement and experiences together: international travel, home renovation, deepening friendships. Anna's food blog, initially a casual hobby, developed growing readership and occasional sponsored content. My project management role expanded to include mentoring junior staff. From external perspectives, we represented successful modern partnership, dual careers, shared interests, mutual support. The past year had brought increased work travel for both of us, my firm taking on projects in neighboring states, Anna attending more marketing conferences and client meetings. The separations were never longer than a few days, and technology kept us connected through video calls and constant texting. I'd never questioned her whereabouts or activities during these separations, just as she'd never questioned mine. Trust seemed fundamental to our relationship, until today's devastating revelation. Looking back with newly suspicious eyes, I could identify subtle shifts that might have signaled trouble. Anna had become more protective of her phone over recent months, keeping it face down and taking calls in another room. Her gym attendance had increased, along with attention to clothing and appearance. Her descriptions of business trips included fewer specific details about conference sessions or client meetings. Weekend work commitments had become more frequent. None of these changes had triggered serious concern at the time. Anna had always been conscientious about fitness and appearance. Her career had been advancing, logically requiring more responsibility and time commitment. The decreased communication about work details seemed natural evolution as our careers became more complex and specialized. But now, with confirmation of at least one fabricated business trip and explicit mention of future deceptions, these small shifts reorganized themselves into clear pattern. The woman I'd trusted completely, whose career commitments I'd supported unquestioningly, had been systematically creating space for another relationship within our marriage. Most painful was realizing my own recent behavior had inadvertently facilitated her deception. 6 months ago, I decided to surprise Anna on our upcoming anniversary trip to Barcelona by learning Spanish, her mother's native language and one she'd occasionally expressed disappointment I hadn't pursued more seriously. The lessons with Miguel, the language apps, the audio courses during commutes, all had been conducted in secret to maintain the surprise element. This meant that for the past 6 months, I'd also been keeping secrets, innocent ones with positive intent, but secrets nonetheless. I'd been leaving early for project meetings that were actually language lessons. I'd been claiming to listen to podcasts when actually completing Spanish exercises. I'd been practicing vocabulary in private moments she wouldn't observe. The parallel secret-keeping created uncomfortable symmetry, both of us concealing activities from the other, though with dramatically different motivations and implications. Had my innocent deception somehow created permissive atmosphere for her betrayal? Had my focus on Spanish studies made me less attentive to warning signs in our relationship? These questions circled without resolution as I sat in our kitchen, evidence of Anna's infidelity spread across various devices, afternoon sunlight shifting across familiar spaces, now rendered strange by new knowledge. The home we'd created together, selecting each furniture piece, debating paint colors, hanging artwork from our travels, suddenly felt like elaborate stage set for a performance rather than authentic shared space. Most disorienting was the fundamental question underlying all others. Who was the woman I'd been married to for 6 years? The Anna I thought I knew valued honesty above almost all other qualities. She'd expressed contempt for friends who cheated on partners, had ended friendships with people she considered ethically compromised. Her professional reputation emphasized integrity and straightforward communication. How did that version of Anna coexist with someone capable of elaborately planned deception? Who wrote passionate reviews about romantic evenings with another man, then casually texted her husband about working late? Who maintained 2 separate realities without apparent conflict or guilt? As evening approached, I remained at the kitchen table, evidence still arranged before me, no closer to understanding the person I'd shared my life with than when I'd first read the translated review hours earlier. The only certainty was that confrontation would be necessary, not just about the specific infidelity revealed today, but about the fundamental disconnect between the marriage I thought we had and the one that actually existed. Before confronting Anna, I needed to understand the full scope of what I was facing. The restaurant review and supporting evidence confirmed one deceptive weekend, but her closing line about returning whenever my husband travels for work again suggested established pattern rather than isolated incident. If I was going to have any meaningful conversation about our marriage, I needed clarity about what that marriage had actually been. I began methodical review of the past year, correlating my business trips with Anna's whereabouts during those periods. Our shared digital calendar provided starting framework. I'd had 11 overnight work trips in the previous 12 months, ranging from 1 to 3 nights each. For each trip, I noted Anna's scheduled activities as recorded in our calendar. Next, I examined financial records, credit card statements, bank transactions, rideshare receipts. The pattern emerged with devastating clarity. During 7 of my 11 business trips, Anna had made local purchases inconsistent with her claimed activities. Restaurant charges for establishments too expensive for solo dining. Rideshare trips to and from unfamiliar addresses late at night. Wine bar tabs large enough for multiple people. The security system logs provided further confirmation. During those same 7 periods, our front door had registered activity at times when Anna was supposedly elsewhere, returning home well after midnight when she'd claimed early nights, leaving at times that contradicted her stated schedule. Most painful was discovering that my most recent business trip, 3 days in Philadelphia just 2 weeks earlier, had featured the same pattern. While I was calling Anna each night from my hotel room, she had been dining at upscale restaurants, visiting a cocktail bar we'd once enjoyed together, and returning home at 1:30 a.m. from an address in an upscale neighborhood across town. The systematic nature of the deception stunned me. This wasn't impulsive behavior or momentary weakness, but elaborate, sustained creation of alternate reality. The planning required fake work commitments, consistent cover stories, careful financial management, suggested not just infidelity, but fundamental comfort with deception that seemed completely at odds with the woman I thought I'd married. By early evening, I had compiled comprehensive timeline of discrepancies spanning the past year. The evidence suggested the affair, if it was just one affair rather than multiple encounters, had begun approximately 9 months earlier, coinciding with period when Anna's work travel had increased and her phone habits had changed. The logical next step was identifying the other person involved. The restaurant review mentioned no names, referring only to mi amor and mi corazón, terms of endearment that provided no identifying information. The unfamiliar addresses from rideshare records offered potential lead, but without names attached, they remained insufficient for definitive identification. I considered accessing Anna's phone when she returned home. The password was supposedly the same as her laptop. But something about that approach felt like final surrender to the toxic suspicion now permeating our relationship. The evidence already compiled provided sufficient confirmation of betrayal without requiring additional invasion of privacy that would further compromise whatever remained of our marriage. As darkness fell outside our kitchen windows, I put away the various devices and documents, storing digital evidence in password-protected folder and returning physical items to their original locations. The methodical investigation had provided necessary clarity about factual aspects of Anna's deception, but the fundamental questions remained emotional rather than evidential. Why had this happened? What had our marriage actually meant to her? Was there anything genuine remaining beneath the elaborate deceptions? At 8:47 p.m., Anna texted again, "Still at office, probably another hour at least. Don't wait up." I responded simply, "We need to talk when you get home. It's important." Her reply came quickly, "Everything okay? Should I come now?" "No emergency," I wrote back. "Finish your work, but don't be surprised when I'm still awake." The brief exchange felt surreal, conducting normal communication while holding knowledge that would permanently alter our relationship. Even more surreal was recognizing that Anna was likely not at her office at all, but using work as cover for time spent elsewhere with someone else. To occupy the waiting time, I began drafting notes for the coming conversation, not script, but framework, to ensure I addressed essential points without being derailed by emotional reactions. The process helped organize my thoughts and maintain focus on what mattered most, understanding the truth about our marriage rather than just specific details of the infidelity. At 10:23 p.m., headlights swept across our living room as Anna's car pulled into the driveway. I remained seated at the kitchen table, heart pounding but outwardly calm, as the garage door opened and closed. Keys jingled in the lock. Footsteps crossed from entryway to kitchen. "David, why are you sitting in the dark?" I reached over and turned on the table lamp, revealing my position but keeping the lighting low. Anna stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand, wearing the same outfit she'd left in that morning. Charcoal pencil skirt, blue silk blouse, low heels. Her makeup remained flawless despite the supposedly long workday, her hair showing no signs of the typical dishevelment that accompanied her actual late nights at the office. "Sit down," I said quietly. "We need to talk about your weekend in Chicago." Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, micro-adjustments so subtle that I would have missed it had I not been watching specifically for reaction. Then professional composure reasserted itself as she set down her briefcase and took the chair across from me. "What about it?" "The conference was fine. Some useful sessions on digital marketing integration, though nothing revolutionary." "Why?" The lie delivered with such casual confidence momentarily stunned me. Even knowing what I now knew, part of me had expected hesitation or discomfort when directly questioned. Instead, Anna maintained eye contact, expression open and slightly curious, as if genuinely wondering about my unusual behavior. "That's interesting," I replied, keeping my voice level, "since there was no marketing conference in Chicago this weekend. And the security system shows you came home Friday night and Sunday morning, and your credit card shows charges at Alma Restaurant Saturday night, and your blog has a review of that meal, written in Spanish, describing your romantic evening with someone who isn't me." With each statement, her expression changed, initial confusion giving way to shock, then calculation, then resignation, as she realized the extent of what I had discovered. When I finished speaking, she remained silent for several moments, hands folded on the table between us, eyes now focused on some middle distance rather than meeting my gaze. "How did you know what the blog post said?" she finally asked, voice barely above whisper. "You don't speak Spanish." "I've been learning for 6 months," I replied. "For our anniversary trip to Barcelona. I wanted to surprise you." The irony hung between us, my secret Spanish studies revealing her secret affair, both of us keeping parts of ourselves hidden from the other, though with vastly different motivations and consequences. "I'm so sorry," she said, eyes filling with tears. "I never meant for you to find out like this." as opposed to finding out how exactly? I asked, the first edge of anger entering my voice despite my determination to remain calm. Or were you planning that I would never find out at all? That you could just continue seeing him whenever I traveled for work? She flinched at the reference to her blog's closing line, confirmation that I had indeed understood the full implications of what she had written. It's complicated, David, not what you're thinking. Then explain it to me, I said. Help me understand how my wife has been conducting an affair for months, creating elaborate cover stories about business trips, and writing public reviews about romantic evenings with another man, all while maintaining our normal married life as if nothing was happening. The confrontation I had imagined for hours was finally happening, the moment when pretense fell away and truth emerged. Whether that truth would provide any foundation for moving forward remained to be seen, but at minimum, it would offer clarity about what our marriage had actually been, and whether anything genuine remained to be salvaged from the wreckage of systematic deception. His name is Javier, Anna began, voice steadier than her tear-filled eyes would suggest. We met at a marketing conference in Atlanta last year. He runs a boutique agency specializing in Hispanic markets. I don't care how you met, I interrupted, struggling to maintain composure. I care about the choices you've made since then, the lies you've told, the double life you've been living. She nodded, accepting the redirection. The attraction was immediate and intense, something I hadn't felt in years. We exchanged information professionally, but the connection was obviously more than that. After the conference, we started texting, just industry stuff at first, then personal conversations. While you were sitting next to me on the couch at night, I observed, while I thought we were sharing our days with each other. Yes, she acknowledged, not attempting to minimize this reality. It progressed gradually, texts, then phone calls during lunch breaks, then video chats when you were traveling. He lives in Chicago but comes here regularly for clients. The timeline matched what my investigation had revealed, beginning approximately 9 months ago, intensifying over time, with particular activity during my business trips. Hearing Anna calmly describe the evolution of the relationship she had carefully hidden from me created surreal disconnect, as if she were discussing someone else's affair rather than her own systematic betrayal. When did it become physical? I asked, needing concrete understanding despite the pain each revelation caused. 4 months ago, she replied without hesitation. During that conference in Denver, except I never went to Denver. He flew here. We spent the weekend together. The specific date confirmed another suspicion. The first fabricated business trip had occurred shortly after my own Spanish studies began. While I was secretly learning her mother's language to create anniversary surprise, Anna was creating elaborate deception to spend weekend with another man. And this past weekend, the fake Chicago conference? Similar arrangement. He was here for client meetings Thursday and Friday, so I created space to spend time with him. Created space, I repeated, the euphemism igniting fresh anger. You mean you lied about where you were, who you were with, and what you were doing? You fabricated an entire business trip, knowing I wouldn't question it because I trusted you completely. She flinched but didn't dispute the characterization. Yes. And the blog post? Writing publicly about your romantic evening in a language you thought I couldn't understand? What possible explanation exists for that level of disrespect? For the first time, genuine shame crossed her features. That was inexcusable, reckless. I convinced myself you'd never see it. That even if you did, you wouldn't understand the subtext. It was stupid and cruel. I'm so sorry. The apology, while possibly genuine, addressed only the public documentation rather than the fundamental betrayal. The technical error of getting caught rather than the moral failure of systematic deception. How many times, Anna? How many fake business trips? How many nights with him while I thought you were working late or at conferences? She hesitated, seemingly calculating whether honesty or minimization would better serve her interests. 11 or 12 times in person, she finally said, plus regular communication when we weren't together. The number matched almost exactly with my own business trips over the past 9 months. Confirmation that she had indeed used every opportunity my absence provided to further her relationship with Javier. The revelation that their connection extended beyond physical encounters to regular communication suggested emotional investment beyond casual affair. Do you love him? The question emerged before I could consider whether I actually wanted the answer. Anna's hesitation provided response more definitive than any words could have offered. I have feelings for him, she eventually said. Strong feelings, but it's complicated. Because you're married, I supplied flatly. Yes, and because what we have, what you and I have built together, matters to me. Our history, our life, our friendship, I never wanted to lose that. The statement ignited something molten inside me, rage finally breaking through the shock that had dominated my emotional landscape since morning. What exactly did you think would happen, Anna? That you could maintain 2 separate relationships indefinitely? That I would never discover the elaborate deceptions? That our marriage could continue while you systematically betrayed everything it supposedly represented? I wasn't thinking long-term, she admitted, gaze dropping to her hands. Each step seemed like an isolated decision rather than part of larger pattern. The texts were just texts until they weren't. The lunch meetings were just professional until they weren't. The first weekend was supposed to be a one-time event to get him out of my system, but then you decided our marriage vows were optional, I finished for her. That honesty and fidelity were inconvenient obstacles to your happiness. She looked up, sudden defiance flashing through the tears. That's not fair. Our marriage hasn't been perfect. We've both been going through motions for years. The accusation landed like physical blow. Based on what evidence? The fact that I trusted you completely? That I supported your career even when it meant time apart? That I believed your excuses about late nights and weekend work commitments? We stopped growing together, she insisted. After the decision about children, something changed. We created comfortable life, but stopped challenging each other. When was the last time we had conversation that wasn't about work or household logistics? When was the last time we truly connected beyond routine existence? The questions contained uncomfortable kernels of truth. Our relationship had settled into predictable patterns, passion gradually replaced by companionable coexistence. But the implicit suggestion that this natural evolution somehow justified systematic deception represented moral reasoning so fundamentally alien to my understanding of our relationship that I struggled to formulate response. If you were unhappy, I finally managed, you had countless opportunities to address that directly, to suggest counseling again, to initiate difficult conversations. Instead, you chose elaborate deception. You chose to invest emotional and physical energy in another relationship while maintaining the benefits of marriage. I know, she acknowledged, momentary defiance collapsing into renewed contrition. I made terrible choices, unforgivable choices. Is that what you want? I asked, suddenly needing clarity about her actual desires rather than just explanations of past behavior. Forgiveness? Reconciliation? Or is this conversation just damage control while you figure out exit strategy? The question clearly caught her unprepared. I don't know, she admitted after lengthy pause. Until today, I hadn't thought in those terms, hadn't forced myself to choose. Because you were enjoying having both, I observed, the reality of her compartmentalization becoming clearer. The excitement and passion with Javier, the stability and history with me. 2 separate relationships serving different needs. She didn't deny this assessment, her silence providing confirmation more damning than any verbal response might have offered. Well, that arrangement has ended, I continued, finding strange calm in the clarity of this boundary. I won't be option in your portfolio of relationships. I won't be safety net while you explore connection with someone else. You need to decide what you actually want, not in this moment of crisis, but for your life moving forward. Anna nodded slowly, tears falling freely now. That's fair. I need time to think clearly. Take whatever time you need, I said, standing to create physical distance that matched emotional chasm now separating us. I'll be staying at Mark's place starting tonight. I've already packed bag. You're leaving? Alarm replaced resignation in her expression. David, please. We should talk more. Try to work through this together. We've talked enough for tonight, I replied, maintaining calm that surprised even me. You've confirmed the affair, acknowledged the deception, and admitted you don't know what you want moving forward. Further conversation without clarity would just create more pain without purpose. What about counseling? She suggested desperately. We could talk with professional help, sort through everything properly. Counseling requires shared commitment to specific outcome, I noted. Until you've decided whether you want this marriage or relationship with Javier, therapy would be waste of everyone's time and energy. The practical logic seemed to penetrate her emotional response, resignation returning as she recognized the fundamental reasonableness of my position. How long will you stay at Mark's? As long as necessary for both of us to gain clarity, I answered. A few days at minimum, possibly longer, depending on what you decide and how we both process everything. I moved toward the hallway where my hastily packed suitcase waited, then paused, turning back with final question that had emerged during our conversation. Does your mother know about Javier? Anna's expression registered confusion at this unexpected inquiry. My mother? No, of course not. Why would you ask that? Because you wrote the blog post in Spanish, her native language. I wondered if that represented some subconscious desire for her approval of relationship conducted in language of her heritage. The observation clearly startled Anna, suggesting psychological dimension she hadn't consciously considered. I wrote it in Spanish because, she began, then stopped, realization dawning. Because I knew you wouldn't understand it, but also because that's the language Javier and I mostly speak together. His English is good, but we connect in Spanish. The revelation added another layer to the betrayal. Their relationship conducted primarily in language that excluded me by design rather than circumstance. The Spanish I'd been secretly learning to create anniversary surprise represented for Anna and Javier private communication channel for their affair. Goodbye, Anna, I said quietly, retrieving my suitcase and moving toward front door. Call me when you've decided what you want. Not what you think I want to hear, not what seems least painful in moment, but what you genuinely desire for your future. David, she called as I opened the door. I'm sorry, truly sorry. I paused without turning back. I believe you're sorry you got caught. I'm less convinced you're sorry about choices that led to this moment. But either way, apologies don't change reality. They just acknowledge it. We need more than acknowledgement to determine whether anything remains worth saving. With that final observation, I walked out into cool spring night, closing door on decade of shared life now revealed as partially fictional. The drive to Mark's apartment passed in strange calm, emotional numbness providing temporary insulation against full impact of day's revelations. Tomorrow would bring pain currently held at bay by shock and pragmatic focus on immediate logistics. But tonight, driving through familiar streets rendered alien by new knowledge, I experienced peculiar clarity about what mattered moving forward. Truth, integrity, and self-respect, regardless of what Anna ultimately decided about our marriage. Mark's spare room became temporary sanctuary, neutral space containing no memories, no shared history, no evidence of relationship now revealed as fundamentally compromised. My friend asked few questions, respecting privacy while providing practical support through simple presence and occasional distraction. The first 3 days passed in blur of functional dissociation, attending work meetings, responding to emails, conducting normal professional activities, while emotional processing remained largely suspended. Colleagues noticed something amiss, but attributed subdued demeanor to generic personal matters explanation I offered when necessary. Anna texted daily with brief, careful messages, taking time to think everything through. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything from the house. I responded with similar brevity, maintaining minimal contact while avoiding substantive discussion that would be premature before her fundamental decision about what she actually wanted. On the 4th day, Emotional suspension finally collapsed, raw grief emerging with physical intensity that left me gasping. I called in sick to work, spent hours alternating between restless pacing and immobile staring, memories of our relationship cycling through consciousness with painful new context. Moments I'd treasured as genuine connection now questioned as potentially performative. Trust I'd extended without reservation, revealed as tragically misplaced. Future I'd assumed secure suddenly rendered uncertain. Mark found me that evening sitting on balcony, staring unseeing at city lights below. Without comment, he placed glass of bourbon beside me, then sat quietly in adjacent chair, offering silent companionship until I felt ready to speak. "I keep trying to understand how she maintained the deception," I finally said. "Not just practical logistics, but psychological compartmentalization. How do you look someone in the eye, say you love them, plan future together, all while systematically betraying everything those actions supposedly represent?" Mark considered the question with appropriate seriousness. "Some people have greater capacity for compartmentalization than others. They create separate psychological spaces that don't necessarily interact." "But that's what I can't comprehend," I insisted. "The Anna I thought I knew valued integrity above almost everything else. She ended friendships with people she considered dishonest. She built professional reputation on straightforward communication. How does that person coexist with someone capable of elaborate, sustained deception?" "Maybe both versions are real," Mark suggested carefully. "People contain contradictions. The values she consciously espouses might be genuine, even while her behavior violates those same principles. Cognitive dissonance is remarkably powerful." The observation provided framework for understanding without minimizing betrayal's significance. Anna might simultaneously value honesty as abstract principle, while justifying specific deceptions through elaborate rationalization. Her compartmentalization allowed maintaining self-image as fundamentally good person, while engaging in behavior that contradicted that identity. This perspective helped address philosophical questions without resolving emotional impact. Understanding psychological mechanisms didn't diminish pain or automatically determine appropriate response. The fundamental questions remained relational rather than theoretical. Could trust ever be rebuilt after such comprehensive betrayal? Would reconciliation require sacrificing self-respect? Was relationship with demonstrated capacity for deception worth salvaging regardless of potential future promises? On the 7th day, Anna requested in-person conversation, indicating she had reached clarity about what she wanted moving forward. We arranged to meet at neutral location, coffee shop equidistant between Mark's apartment and our house, to minimize emotional complications of familiar domestic space. She arrived looking simultaneously familiar and strange, same physical appearance but fundamentally altered by new knowledge of her capacity for deception. The cognitive dissonance created momentary vertigo, seeing someone I knew intimately, yet now realized I hadn't fully known at all. "Thank you for meeting me," she began after we'd settled at corner table with minimal privacy, but sufficient distance from other patrons to allow quiet conversation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "And?" I prompted when she hesitated. "I want to try to rebuild our marriage," she said, meeting my gaze directly. "I've ended things with Javier completely, blocked his number, deleted all contact information, removed him from social media. I understand that doesn't automatically fix anything between us, but it's necessary first step." The declaration, while potentially significant, raised immediate questions about motivation and timing. Why now? What changed between last week and today? She considered the question thoughtfully rather than offering immediate reassurance. Losing you, actually facing that reality rather than theoretical possibility, clarified what matters most. The excitement with Javier was real but ultimately hollow compared to what we've built together. What we thought we'd built together, I corrected. A relationship founded on trust and honesty that's now revealed as partially fictional. The foundation was real, she insisted. The connection, the history, the genuine care and support. My terrible choices damaged that foundation severely, but didn't completely destroy it. I believe we can rebuild something stronger, with professional help, and complete transparency moving forward. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, exploring both practical and emotional dimensions of potential reconciliation. Anna outlined specific commitments she was prepared to make: therapy, both individual and couples, complete digital transparency, career adjustments to eliminate unnecessary travel, regular check-ins about relationship satisfaction, rather than allowing issues to accumulate unaddressed. Throughout this discussion, I maintained emotional distance necessary for clear assessment rather than reactive decision-making. Anna's apparent sincerity seemed genuine, her willingness to accept responsibility without qualification representing significant shift from initial conversation. The question wasn't whether she currently felt remorseful, that seemed evident, but whether such remorse indicated fundamental change or temporary reaction to consequences. "I appreciate everything you've said," I finally responded, after she had fully outlined her perspective. "But rebuilding trust after this level of betrayal would require extraordinary commitment from both of us, with no guarantee of success. I need more time before deciding whether that's something I'm willing to attempt." She nodded, accepting this boundary without protest. "Take whatever time you need. I understand the damage I've caused can't be repaired quickly or easily, if at all. I just want you to know I'm committed to doing whatever work is necessary if you decide reconciliation is possible." We parted with no definitive resolution, but clearer understanding of potential paths forward. Whether those paths would ultimately converge or permanently diverge remained uncertain, dependent on processing that couldn't be rushed despite discomfort of prolonged ambiguity. The following weeks established new patterns of limited contact and separate living arrangements, while both of us engaged individual therapy to address personal dimensions of situation before attempting joint counseling. Anna began sessions with therapists specializing in infidelity recovery. I found practitioner focused on betrayal, trauma, and decision-making during relationship crisis. Dr. Levine, my therapist, provided framework for understanding emotional responses without prescribing specific outcome. "There's no single right decision after betrayal of this magnitude," she explained during our third session. "Some relationships rebuild stronger after infidelity. Others end despite sincere reconciliation attempts. The question isn't what most people would do, but what aligns with your specific values and needs." This permission to prioritize personal integrity over external expectations proved surprisingly liberating. Cultural narratives about infidelity often present binary options: immediate termination, representing self-respect; reconciliation, demonstrating mature compassion. The reality involved more complex considerations specific to our particular relationship, personalities, and circumstances. 1 month after discovery, I agreed to initial couples counseling session. Not commitment to reconciliation, but willingness to explore whether foundation existed for rebuilding trust. The therapist, Dr. Hernandez, specialized in multicultural relationships and infidelity recovery, bringing perspective informed by both professional expertise and cultural understanding of Spanish-English dynamics relevant to our situation. Rebuilding after betrayal requires establishing new relationship rather than restoring previous one, she explained during our first session. The marriage you had ended with the infidelity. The question is whether you can create new connection that incorporates this difficult experience rather than denying it. This framing, creating something new rather than repairing what existed before, provided useful perspective for evaluating reconciliation possibility. The issue wasn't whether we could return to previous trust, which seemed fundamentally impossible, but whether we could establish different relationship with appropriate boundaries, expectations, and communication patterns. 2 months after discovery, I made decision to attempt reconciliation process while maintaining separate residence and clear boundaries. The choice wasn't based on blind optimism, but careful assessment of Anna's demonstrated commitment to necessary work, recognition of relationships' positive aspects worth preserving, and personal capacity for potential forgiveness without self-betrayal. "I'm willing to try," I told Anna during conversation at neutral location that had become our regular meeting place. "Not because I'm certain about outcome, but because our history deserves genuine effort before permanent conclusion. This doesn't mean immediate trust or resumption of normal marriage. It means commitment to process that might eventually lead there, depending on what emerges. Her response balanced appropriate gratitude with realistic acknowledgement of work ahead. Thank you for being willing to try. I know I haven't earned this opportunity, and that trust will require consistent demonstration over significant time. I'm committed to that process regardless of how challenging it becomes. The reconciliation attempt established new relationship patterns significantly different from previous marriage. Weekly couples therapy provided structured environment for addressing difficult topics with professional guidance. Individual therapy continued for both of us, addressing personal issues contributing to relationship dynamics. Complete digital transparency replaced previous privacy with shared access to phones, computers, and accounts. Most significantly, we began process of genuine reconnection beyond logistical cooperation. Conversations about feelings, values, and experiences that had gradually disappeared from marriage before infidelity occurred. The painful catalyst had revealed emotional distance that developed incrementally over years, creating vulnerability that didn't excuse betrayal but helped explain conditions that enabled it. 3 months after discovery, I moved back into our house while maintaining separate bedroom, physical proximity, supporting relationship rebuilding, while boundaries reflected continuing process rather than completed reconciliation. The arrangement acknowledged progress made while respecting ongoing nature of trust reconstruction. The most unexpected development emerged through renewed language connection. My Spanish studies, initially abandoned after devastating discovery, resumed with different motivation, not surprise anniversary gift, but genuine communication tool. Anna's bilingual background represented significant aspect of her identity previously underemphasized in our relationship. Developing capacity to engage with that dimension created new connection point while reclaiming language from its association with betrayal. Mi español todavía no es perfecto, I told her during dinner conversation 6 months after discovery, pero estoy mejorando cada día. My Spanish still isn't perfect, but I'm improving every day. Her smile contained genuine warmth without excessive gratitude, appreciation for effort without treating basic relationship investment as extraordinary gift. Es importante para mí que puedas comunicarte en este idioma, she responded. It's important to me that you can communicate in this language. The exchange represented microcosm of larger reconciliation process, acknowledging painful history without remaining permanently defined by it, creating new connection while honoring complexity of past experience, building relationship that incorporated rather than denied difficult reality we had navigated together. 1 year after discovering Anna's affair through Spanish restaurant review, we sat together on flight to Barcelona, the anniversary trip originally planned as context for revealing my language studies. The journey represented not celebration of past accomplishment, but commitment to future possibility, recognition of progress made, while acknowledging continuing nature of trust reconstruction. Are you nervous about being back here? Anna asked quietly as plane began its descent, referencing Barcelona's significance as her mother's birthplace and cultural connection point for relationship with Javier, who had family roots in neighboring region. Not nervous, I replied after thoughtful consideration, but aware of the complexity. This place holds different meanings for both of us now. We're creating new associations rather than simply enjoying uncomplicated vacation. She nodded, understanding the nuance without requiring elaborate explanation, evidence of communication evolution that had developed through months of intentional work. I'm grateful we're here together, she said simply. Whatever else happens, that matters. The statement captured essential quality of our rebuilt relationship, appreciation for present connection without denying difficult history or claiming complete resolution. The betrayal remained a significant chapter in our shared narrative, neither forgotten nor constantly referenced but integrated into understanding of who we were individually and together. Our time in Barcelona unfolded with balance between tourist experiences and deeper engagement with cultural context that Anna's heritage provided. My functional Spanish facilitated interactions, that would previously have required her constant translation, creating more equal partnership in navigating linguistic environment. Her family connections offered access to neighborhoods and experiences beyond typical visitor itinerary, enriching our understanding of place that held such significance in her personal history. The most profound moment came unexpectedly during conversation with elderly restaurant owner who, upon learning of Anna's maternal connection to Barcelona, shared stories of city during Franco era when her mother had been child there. The interaction conducted entirely in Spanish, with my comprehension sufficient to follow narrative without requiring translation. "I never thought we'd have this experience together," Anna observed later that evening as we walked along waterfront promenade. "You understanding my mother's language, connecting with her culture directly rather than through my interpretation." "That was always the intention," I reminded her gently, "before everything happened." She nodded, acknowledging this reality without defensive response. "I know, and I nearly destroyed possibility through my choices. The fact that we're here anyway, creating this experience despite what happened, that means everything." The exchange exemplified transformation that had gradually emerged through reconciliation process, capacity to reference betrayal directly without triggering defensive reactions or overwhelming emotional responses. The affair had become integrated aspect of shared history rather than explosive topic requiring careful avoidance or consuming entire relationship when mentioned. Upon returning home, this integration continued through daily interactions that balanced appropriate vigilance with growing comfort. Trust rebuilt incrementally through consistent reliability rather than dramatic declarations or performative gestures. Anna maintained transparent communication about her whereabouts and activities without resentment. I developed capacity to extend measured trust without either naive vulnerability or hypervigilant suspicion. 18 months after discovery, we made mutual decision to try for pregnancy, commitment to shared future that required fundamental trust in relationship stability. The choice emerged through careful consideration rather than emotional reaction or attempt to fix lingering issues through major life change. "Are we ready for this?" I asked during conversation that formalized decision we'd been approaching gradually through previous discussions. Not just logistically, but emotionally, as partnership that can provide stable foundation for child? "I believe we are," Anna replied with appropriate seriousness. "Not because we've erased what happened or pretend our relationship is perfect, but because we've developed capacity to navigate difficulty with honesty and mutual support. That's ultimately more valuable than relationship that's never been tested." The perspective reflected wisdom gained through painful experience. Recognition that relationship strength emerges not from absence of challenges, but response to them. Our marriage had faced most significant test possible and, while permanently changed by that experience, had ultimately developed resilience that untested connection might lack. 2 years after discovery, Anna became pregnant after several months of trying. The news brought genuine joy tempered by realistic understanding of challenges ahead, both typical parenting adjustments and specific considerations related to our relationship history. "I want our child to grow up in household defined by integrity," I noted during conversation about parenting values. "Not perfect parents who never make mistakes, but adults who demonstrate accountability and honest communication, even when difficult." "That's exactly what I want too," Anna agreed, "to create family environment where truth is valued even when uncomfortable, where respect and trust are demonstrated through actions rather than just words." This shared commitment to values that had been severely tested through betrayal experience represented foundation for parenting approach that acknowledged human fallibility while maintaining clear ethical expectations. The standards weren't abstract principles, but lived experience, understanding gained through painful process of destruction and rebuilding. The most unexpected outcome emerged through deepened relationship with Anna's mother, who had visited shortly after our Barcelona trip and sensed significant change in our dynamic. During private conversation while Anna was at prenatal appointment, Maria had asked directly about transformation she observed. "Something important has happened between you two," she noted in Spanish that I could now understand without translation. something difficult but ultimately strengthening. The observation created opening for carefully bounded disclosure, not betraying Anna's privacy through excessive detail, but acknowledging general nature of challenge we had navigated. We went through serious crisis, I confirmed in Spanish, that remained imperfect but functional. One that required rebuilding trust and communication from foundation? Maria nodded, unsurprised by confirmation of what she had intuitively recognized. Las crisis revelan la verdadera naturaleza de una relación, she observed. Crises reveal the true nature of a relationship. The conversation deepened connection with women whose cultural heritage now represented shared value rather than differential access point. My ability to communicate directly in her native language created relationship independent of Anna's mediation, expanding family connection beyond previous limitations. 3 years after discovery of affair through Spanish restaurant review, our daughter Sofia was born, name honoring both Maria's heritage and significance of wisdom gained through difficult experience. The birth represented not completion of reconciliation process, but continuation of journey that had transformed individual identities and relationship dynamics in ways neither of us could have anticipated. She's perfect, Anna whispered as we held our daughter together in hospital room filled with morning light. And we're not. But maybe that's exactly what she needs. Parents who understand both human frailty and capacity for growth. The observation captured essential wisdom emerging from our experience, recognition that meaningful relationship develops not through absence of mistakes, but commitment to learning from them. The betrayal had caused genuine trauma that could never be erased from our history, but the healing process had ultimately created partnership with greater depth, authenticity, and resilience than previous connection built on untested assumptions. Most significantly, we had developed capacity for truth that acknowledged complexity without minimizing accountability, understanding that relationships contain both genuine connection and potential deception, both sincere commitment and human weakness. This nuanced perspective replaced previous binary thinking that had made betrayal seem impossible within otherwise loving marriage, creating more realistic foundation for continuing journey together. The foreign language that had revealed devastating truth ultimately became bridge to deeper understanding, not just of words and grammar, but cultural context, family heritage, and communication patterns that transcended simple translation. What began as painful discovery through Spanish restaurant review had transformed into expanded capacity for connection across multiple dimensions of relationship that might otherwise have remained unexplored. TLDR. I secretly learned Spanish for 6 months to surprise my wife on our anniversary trip to Barcelona. Instead, I discovered she was having an affair when my colleague translated her Spanish restaurant review, describing a romantic evening with another man while I thought she was on a business trip. After confronting her, I learned she'd been conducting the affair in Spanish, thinking I'd never understand. Through therapy and hard work, we eventually rebuilt our marriage on more honest foundation. 3 years later, we have a daughter and a relationship that's stronger precisely because we faced such a difficult test. Edit. Many have asked if I regret learning Spanish given what it revealed. Honestly, no. The affair was happening regardless. Learning Spanish just allowed me to discover the truth sooner rather than continuing to live in a relationship built on deception. While the discovery was incredibly painful, it forced us to address issues that might have otherwise remained hidden for years. Sometimes painful truth is better than comfortable fiction. Update. 1 year later. Our daughter Sofia is now walking and saying her first words in both English and Spanish. My Spanish has improved to near fluency, and we regularly speak both languages at home. The most surprising outcome is that my wife and I have actually developed a deeper connection through our recovery process than we had before. The affair is part of our history that we've integrated rather than forgotten. For those facing similar situations, reconciliation isn't the right choice for everyone, but if both people are truly committed to the difficult work, it is possible to build something meaningful after betrayal.